are really glad today to have with us Dr. Sushant Shinde. And sir needs no introduction, but to just complete the formalities. Sir has completed his master's from AIIMS, Delhi. He's received an EULA certification in rheumatology, and he's the founder of Quest Medical Academy, Mumbai, and the co-founder of Quest Clinics. Along with that, since a couple of years now, Sir has been running this program of Quest Unplugged, and where all the students, like UG students precisely, have been oriented to research, and people have an orientation of how to go about research. So thank you, sir. And with that, we start with our topic for today, which is study designs and how to read a research article. So from here, I would like to hand over it to Dr. Sushant. And yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Manali, and thank you to the entire team of Jignyasa. It's actually a wonderful initiative that you guys have started, and I extend all my best wishes to you. I can understand that as students, to organize something of this level is really tough, and also to get people interested in research and in such good numbers is a commendable job. So keep it up, and
Thank
I hope
you, sir.
you continue this activity and your next batches also continue such activities, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Neil, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this view so that when the recording comes, not three
Yes,
ones.
sir.
Absolutely, sir.
So let's jump into this. And while we are doing this, a couple of basic outline of what I'm going to do. So I have a PowerPoint presentation ready for you. I would like to keep it conversational. We can have a chat over this idea of understanding trial designs and also understanding of how do you read a paper. It's not very difficult if you have understood all the previous topics. All the speakers who have come before me on this platform, they have done a wonderful job. I have gone through some of the talks over here, and they were really good. So I think if you have understood that, your job is largely done. Now what I'm going to do is, let's first start with the idea of when you want to read research or publish research. Everything in research is about having a question. So what is your question? What is it that you're trying to answer? And we'll take some examples also in that. But before that, let's assume that, in a simple way, you are right now in final year or third year MBBS, and you go to the wards and you find that there is this rare kind of a presentation that you're seeing. Maybe this is some kind of a patient who nobody ever has seen, or at least your seniors say that we have never seen something like this. Let me take an example. Maybe this is a patient who has some kind of myopathy, and along with that myopathy, this patient has, let's say, a renal involvement. I'm not saying that's absolutely uncommon, but maybe this is the first time someone is seeing this particular type of myopathy with this kind of renal involvement. You have never seen that before. Now you want the world to know about it. That's what research is, right? You want the world to know about it. Now, if you want the world to know about it, what you can do is you can talk to your HOD, or maybe if tomorrow you're a consultant, you could do it yourself, and you can write down all the details about this particular patient and submit to a particular journal. If the journal believes that such a thing has never been published, at least not in their journal, or if it has not been published at all, they would publish about your case, whatever you have seen in that case. And that thing is what is called a case report. So I'm going to start writing down these words. If any one of you is planning to write down notes, this might be a good idea that you can write down along with me. If not, no worries. You can just say that, okay, this is what it is. You can say that there are going to be case reports. Now, case report means typically a case report would have a single case. Sometimes you might have 3 cases, 5 cases, something like that, but a short number of cases. Usually, the case reports are what are very interesting to read. It is very interesting for me that I saw something like this and I want the world to know. But let's look at it from the other side. So we are going to speak from 2 sides. One side is you when you are trying to write this, right? But there is another side of, let's say, me, the physician who is practicing right now in the clinic. I'm a private practitioner. I go out and, I start searching the internet for something, and I come across your paper. And I find that, this particular doctor, that's you, has written this paper maybe last year, and last year he has found that this myopathy is associated with this renal disease. What do you think it changes for my practice? Technically, not much. If I tomorrow see that patient of myopathy, am I going to tell him that, what, you're going to develop this kidney disease? Unlikely, because what you have reported, nobody else in the world has reported. How common is it? Answer is not very common. It's in fact quite rare. So if it is going to be very rare, the chance is I'm not very interested in it. I will read it and I'll say, okay, aisa bhi ho sakta hai, but well, it's not going to happen very commonly, so why do I bother? Right? That's what I'm going to do. Which means the evidence that you generated was interesting, but it wasn't very important for the world literature. It didn't change much for anybody else's practice, because I know that most of the times, 99.99% times, that myopathy doesn't cause this kidney disease. You saw it, good. So maybe it can, there is something there, but it's not common. Let's go one step further. Now, let's say that you have stayed in the hospital that you are in for the next 10 or 15 years. You have done your residency there, you have become an assistant professor, you maybe have become a professor in the next 15, 20 years, and you're a professor in that hospital. And you have been always interested in this idea of myopathy. So you keep on seeing these patients of myopathy, and you find that in the next 15 years, out of these 15 years that you saw myopathy, you saw that around 45 times the patient of myopathy did have a kidney disease, and nobody in the world had figured it out. Or maybe there were some more people across the world who had seen that this is happening. What you can do is, if you have been very meticulous, and you need to be very meticulous when it is research, so if you have been very meticulously writing down the data of each of these 45 patients, you could collect this together, and now you can say that of 45 patients, so many percentage had this kind of nephropathy, so many percentage had this kind of nephropathy, so many percentage were men, so many were women, so many percentage or this much percentage were people having maybe this kind of risk factor like hypertension or diabetes, so on and so forth. You can characterize and give me the demographics of these patients. These 45 patients, you can describe them, right? All of this, remember, is just description. This kind of a paper that you write would be called a case series. So you can have a case report, and after that you could have a case series. Multiple patients taken together. Now you're not describing just one patient, but you're describing all of these patients together, and that becomes a case series. But again, what do you think? If I'm reading a paper 45 years, 15 years from now, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's say I'm still around and I'm reading the paper that you have written, what do I feel? I said, okay, seems interesting. There does look like there is something happening here. I won't say now this is very rare. I would say there are case reports and there is a case series also. But come on, I'm not going to tell the next patient that I come across that you are going to develop nephropathy. Also, if I do see a patient having nephropathy, I'm not going to start changing my practice and screen patients for nephropathy. That doesn't look like what I'm going to do. It did increase my confidence in what you have to say, but it did not increase my confidence so much as to change my practice. So again, case report, interesting for you. Case series, interesting for you. Not really of interest to the audience, not really of interest to the people who are reading your paper. You should also keep yourself in the other side. A lot of time, students send me messages saying, sir, we read a paper that says so and so happens. And it happens to be a case series, or it happens to be a case report. Be very cautious before believing a case series or case report. Why do I need to be so cautious? Well, it could be by chance, no? It is maybe by chance that you are seeing it. Maybe there's some bias. Maybe you are the only one who's trying to think that when you're trying to search, so you're finding something. Maybe these patients were not actually having myopathy and nephropathy. They were having myopathy, steroid-induced diabetes, and diabetes-induced nephropathy. Who knows? There could be a bias. This could be by chance, right? So please remember, if you're writing, this is where you need to write down that these two are low level of evidence. So the level of evidence is low. And these two are a high degree of bias. There is a chance that there is a bias in these, and there is a chance that the evidence is low over here, right? So now what I need to do, now what you need to do, now some of you have raised hands, so I'll just ask you to hold on. I'll complete this section and then take your questions. If you have a question, do set it up, put it up in the chat box. So now if you have to prove this, let's say you are someone who is very convinced that myopathy does cause this, some association with this. You can now go from description of data to actually doing much better kind of trial designs. What you could do next to are two kinds of things. You could either do a case control study, or you could do a cohort study, right? So after this level comes the next level, and the next level is either you could have a case control study. I'm sure you have heard about these terms. I'm just not very sure whether this was described in the last sessions or not, but I'm assuming they were not, so I'm just going ahead. So case control study, and after that you could have a cohort study. Now, what is a case control study? What is a cohort study? To keep it simple, a case control study means I am going to see patients who already had a particular disease. So let us say I'm doing a study in patients who have lung cancer and patients who do not have lung cancer. I have cases over here. I have controls over here. Case control study, right? Now, what I want to know is, does smoking increase the risk of lung cancer? That's the question I'm asking. Does smoking increase the case of lung cancer? Remember, all research is about us asking a question and trying to find an answer. Okay. So remember, it's all about us trying to ask questions and trying to find answers. So if you have a question that does smoking cause lung cancer, you have two options. Either you take all the smokers that you can get your hands on, make them into a group, and take all the non-smokers, take them in a group and follow them. But yeah, that's going to be tedious. It might take 30 years. 30 years तक ये smokers को रोज फोन करके हर साल, हर हफ्ते, हर महीने फोन करके पूछना कि did you develop lung cancer? Chances I'm not going to get a follow. Because though there is an association, the number of smokers who will actually develop lung cancer is not big. So instead of going prospectively, I might do this, that what I have done right now is take lung cancer patients and ask them a question. Were you smoking, at least for so and so, whatever my criteria is, were you smoking for so many years? Yes, no, right? I take the patients who did not have lung cancer and I match them. Match them matlab, I try to compare, keep them comparable on other arms. If I have 100 men over here, I would want 100 men over here. If I have these people in the age of 50 to 60, I would want similar number of patients in the age of 50 to 60. Whatever similarities apart from smoking I can think of, I would want them to be similar. I wouldn't have patients who have lung cancers and compare them to their kids. Not a good idea. I want them matched for their age, matched for their gender, matched for any other factor which I can think of. But again, remember, as much as I can think of, only that much I can match. And after matching, I have kept these two groups. And then I'm going to go back and ask these people, tell me, were you smokers or were you non-smokers? I'm going to ask the people who did not have cancer also the same questions. Are you smokers or are you non-smokers? Right? This kind of a study that I did is a retrospective study. You can figure that out, right? This is a retrospective study. I did not actually go from the cause to the effect. Well, I'm not even sure whether these are cause effect. These are associations right now. But for today's discussion, I'm not going from cause to effect. I'm just going from the effect and asking whether you had such a cause. And when I go back, remember, I cannot calculate incidence because I did not start with smokers and go ahead. Now, I wouldn't have time to go into this part, but I would want you to read this part carefully. So listen to what I'm saying, write it down if required, and go and read this up again. I wouldn't have time to dive into the detail of this beautiful discussion, but I repeat. Now, I cannot go back and calculate incidence because I'm not starting, I'm not prospectively going ahead. I'm not using people who were at risk to see how many of them actually developed an event. People who are at risk and who developed an event, that tells me the incidence, new cases coming up out of smokers. But I didn't do that. I started with patients who were already cases and I went back. So what I get is the odds. What are the chances that smokers, that lung cancer patients were smoker? Those are the odds of being smokers. What are the chances that non-lung cancer were smokers? Those are the odds of them being smokers. And I will compare their odds and I'll take an odds ratio. And if the odds ratio is high in favor of smokers, in favor of lung cancer, I'll say, oh, smoking increases the chance of developing lung cancer, so on and so forth, right? So when I do this kind of a retrospective study, I am calculating odds, right? When I'm doing such a retrospective study, I am calculating odds. So case control studies very often will tell you odds and they will not tell you incidence. They will not tell you risk. These two require you to have a prospective study, which you have not done in case of case control. So you are going to get odds and you're going to get, if you compare them, you'll get the odds ratio. What is the odds ratio? What is the chance that you are going to be a smoker if you had lung cancer? How likely are you to be a smoker versus if you are non-lung cancer, how likely were you to be a smoker, right? That kind of an association I might do. Sounds good. If I am able to show that, okay, most of the lung cancer patients were smoker, most of the non-lung cancers were not smokers, well, that does prove my job, doesn't it? If you do that study and if I read it, I should believe it. Don't you think so? Well, you might say, I have done my job. This is the best I could do, but I can always question. तुमने कहा कि लंग कैंसर को तुमने नॉन लंग कैंसर से कंपेयर किया और उनको स्मोकिंग के बारे में पूछा. Did you ask them about their prior radiation exposure? ये तो मैंने सोचा नहीं था यार. I didn't think about their prior radiation exposure. So what if your smokers were belonging to an area or a category where radiation बहुत था, उनके आसपास कोई थर्मल पावर प्लांट था या रेडिएशन पावर प्लांट था, एंड ये जो बाकी नॉन स्मोकर्स थे उस एरिया से आए जहां रेडिएशन नहीं था. Did you match them for that? Now the problem is, if you knew about it, you would have matched. But how can you know everything about your patients? You can't, right? I mean, you have seen the patients coming to your OPD. You spend like 15-20 minutes with them, and in that much you enroll them into a trial. How can you think of so many things about your patients? And how many things can you match them for? You can't, right? So since you can't match them for everything, there is always a chance that this happened by chance. There is always a chance that this was a bias. So please make a note of this. Again, compared to case series, case reports, this is going to have a lesser bias, right? This will be a better level of evidence, but this is not the best level of evidence. So if you see a study which has been published and that study says that the trial design was a case control study, or that study reports itself in forms of odds ratio, you have to remember the question is, was there a bias? Is this something that is actually happening, or is it that they have missed out? They did not intentionally do this. Now, this is something which you should know about research. We don't point fingers and say कि तुमने intentionally किया. हो गया तुमसे, तुमको नहीं मालूम था कि इस चीज के लिए भी मैच करना था. होता है, तुमसे हो गया इसलिए मैं मानूंगा क्या? नहीं. I'm not going to keep on believing what you say. I'm going to question that if you have brought odds, maybe you're right, but maybe you're not, right? That maybe means your bias is still there. Your level of evidence is better than these two, but well, not the best. You could now reverse it. And you might do a cohort study. When you do a cohort study, what you're doing is you will take two sets of people. Let's say there was people who developed a radiation exposure. So let's say you have people who had radiation exposure, and you took another group of people who did not have radiation exposure, right? So maybe there was an unfortunate event. Some people got radiation exposure, some people did not get radiation exposure. You are going to compare these two, and you are going to follow them up over a period of time. And you are going to see of this radiation exposure, because you maybe know by now that radiation can cause particular cancer. Let's say you're expecting them to develop a lymphoma. So you say, did they develop a lymphoma? Did they not develop a lymphoma? Those who did not get any radiation exposure, did they at all develop a lymphoma, or did they not develop lymphoma over a period of, let's say, 5 years or whatever period that you do the study? Now, what has happened is you have taken two groups. Groups are known as cohorts. You have two groups. You have a group which got radiation. You have a group which did not get radiation. Groups are known as cohorts. This kind of a study is known as a cohort study. But when you did a cohort study, remember this was a prospective study. Because it was a prospective study, what you can say is out of the people who get radiation, so much percentage develop lymphoma. That is the incidence of lymphoma in case of radiation. That is the risk of lymphoma in case of radiation. And let me call this L1, let me call this L2. If you take L1, that is this risk of lymphoma in radiation versus risk of lymphoma in non-radiation, and if you take a ratio of that, that is called the risk ratio. So please make a note of this. Big advantage of doing a cohort study is you can calculate the risk. You're no longer depending on odds. You're actually getting the risk, you're actually getting the incidence, and you're getting the risk ratio, right? Now here, there is a much better level of evidence. You actually followed these patients up and you saw what is going to happen, right? But there is always going to be a question. People might always argue, यार ये सब ठीक है, but ऐसा भी तो हो सकता है ना कि जो तुम्हारे पहले ही तुमने सिलेक्शन किया था उसमें कुछ गड़बड़ थी, आपको फिर भी उनको मैच वैच करना पड़ेगा. बट पीपल विल से फिर भी हो सकता है ना कि बाय चांस दिख रहा है. तुम बोलोगे ऐसे कैसे बाय चांस दिख रहा है, अभी तो तुमने देखा इनको रेडिएशन आया और तुम फॉलो कर रहे थे. तुम कहोगे हाँ ठीक है कि केस कंट्रोल स्टडी से तो बेटर चल रहा है, बट इतना भी बेटर नहीं है. देयर इज स्टिल अ चांस कि बाय चांस रेडिएशन वालों को मिल गया. हो सकता है रेडिएशन से नहीं हुआ था, जब उनको एक्सपोजर हुआ था कुछ एक केमिकल भी आया था, उससे भी तो हो सकता है. एंड यू आर लाइक हो तो सकता है. आई कांट ऑलवेज डिनाई, राइट? व्हाई कांट आई डिनाई? बिकॉज जो एक्सपोजर था वो मैंने नहीं किया था. It was already there. I did not expose them to radiation. So it wasn't an interventional study. So if it wasn't an interventional study, I can't be sure that the exposure which I think caused it was the only thing which caused it. हो सकता है ना रेडिएशन एक्सपोजर जब हुआ तो कुछ और भी एक्सपोजर हुआ था जो मुझे नहीं पता था, क्योंकि मैंने तो रेडिएशन एक्सपोजर नहीं किया ना. आई कांट इवन डू इट. So cohort study, please make a note of this, is not an interventional study. If it is not an interventional study, if it is an observation, you're observing someone has already got a radiation exposure, you took all of them and you collected other people who have not got it and you followed them, right? Good, better than case control, because odds नहीं है, risk है, risk आपको calculate करने को मिल रहा है, but फिर भी not the best, because it is no longer there is still no intervention. You cannot control everything that has happened to that patient, right? Since you cannot control everything that has happened to the patient, I would say, well, cohort study is better. Your level of evidence is better over here compared to over here. Your bias also, I would say, is lesser over here compared to over here. So this is better, but not the best. Also, if you want me to believe you, why don't you do this? Why don't you actually introduce the intervention? Now we will have to go to the next level, and the next level of study that I'll have to do is an interventional study. Now there can be variety of types of interventional studies. I won't go into all of them because, well, we don't have the time to do that. Neither are they really practice. The interventional study that is practice. Now, why did I speak about all of this? By the way, is you should know, this is what you will end up doing a lot during your residency. Some of you are doing ICMR projects, you are shifting between this and this. Some of you are very tempted that I should go and do some research, you are shifting between this and this. But you have to remember, these are not interventional trials. Since they are not interventional trials, they are not kept at the top of level of evidence. They are kept actually lower down. So if you are going to put in a lot of effort, try to move to the next step. Try to understand that you might be putting in a lot of effort, but जब मैं उसको पढ़ रहा हूँ, मैं कहूँगा ठीक है यार, इसमें तो bias होगा. I'm not believing you much. I mean, if I'm forced to believe you, I will see examples where we are forced to believe you. But most of the times I will given an option, say, I'm not interested. Let's go to the next level. The next level is randomized controlled trial, right? So if you're writing this down again, please do write this down, that the next level of trial is a randomized controlled trial. I can see some of you are raising hands, but just hold on. I wouldn't be taking your questions yet. I'll just finish this whole story and then I would like to take your questions. The next level is doing an intervention. And when you're doing an intervention, that is one of them. Then there can be many types over here, but I'm just sticking to one of them, is randomized controlled trial. This is considered the gold standard. आज अगर कोई कहे कि कैसे टाइप की ट्रायल करना चाहते हो, by default मेरा आंसर है मैं randomized controlled trial करना चाहता हूँ. I mean, if you give me the choice to करो तो मैं अच्छा ही करूंगा ना, तो अच्छा करना है तो randomized controlled trial करना है. Most of you, I'm sure, must have heard about the name of Mr. Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who got the Nobel Award for economics. Well, you should know that the economics Nobel Award went for their work where they actually took randomized controlled trials, an idea of biostatistics. It's actually a field of medicine, and applied it to economics. They did a kind of a cross field work. They took a trial design from one place and applied it somewhere else and got the Nobel Award for the amazing work that they have done. So randomized controlled trials are very powerful tools, right? They are trial designs, but they're very powerful tools. But what is a randomized controlled trial? Most of the trials that you should be reading should be randomized controlled trial. I hope you all have got the articles which were given out, because in the second half of this talk, I'm going to deal with that article. So that article is also a randomized control trial. If you have not got the articles, please contact the via WhatsApp, not through this, the organizers right away, and get the articles. In the second half from 4 p.m. onwards, I will keep on talking about that article. So that article is a randomized control trial, and you are expected to read randomized control trials. So what is the idea behind randomization? Very simple. The idea behind randomization is, अगर तुमको doubt है कि मैं bias कर रहा हूँ, see, this has happened in the past. People who wanted to publish have done notorious things to get the world to believe in what they wanted to publish. They were not necessarily bad people, they were not villains of some sort, but well, they got carried away with what they thought is correct. And then in order to prove what they thought is correct, they introduced that bias and brought it on the board. So we have been doing a lot of effort. All the trial designs have been doing a lot of effort to reduce that bias. We don't want that bias. We want that it should be a neutral research. कि कोई और भी करे तो वही result मिलना चाहिए. Randomization today is the best tool to reduce the bias. If ever this comes as a question, you should know the answer. The best tool to reduce bias is randomization. What that means is, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to bring about an intervention. I will try to match people and try to take similar cohort of people, very similar to cohort study, right? I'll try to take people who are of the same age, who are of the same gender, or at least similar to each other. But if I arbitrarily say, अच्छा आधे उधर जाओ और आधे इधर जाओ, अगर मैं खुद बताऊं कि कौन कौन से ग्रुप में है, तो मैं हो सकता है चालाकी से कुछ लोगों को इधर डालूं जिनमें कुछ ऐसे कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है जो पढ़ने वाले को पता नहीं है बट मुझे पता है. मैं ऐसा कर सकता हूं, राइट? इससे दुनिया डरती है. So what we want is, I take 1,000 people. If 1,000 people are going to be taken in a trial, randomly I say 500 here, 500 here. That randomization is at the heart of clinical trials today, because the moment I randomize, I, the author, I, the researcher, have lost control in introducing a bias. If there is actually another factor, for example, I took people who have got radiation and I do a trial in them. The moment I randomize them, half of them have got radiation, the other half has also got the radiation. And then I will add an intervention on top of that, whatever that intervention might be. Right? Maybe I want to give a drug which takes away the effect of radiation. Maybe that's what I'm studying. But both of them have got radiation. And if someone says, what if radiation के साथ उनको कोई और exposure भी आया था? I can always answer, मैंने तो randomize कर दिया, मैंने दोनों को mix कर दिया, apples and oranges को मैंने mix कर दिया, तो equal apples और equal oranges दोनों तरफ आ चुके हैं. So now you can't blame me कि इस तरफ कोई extra अलग type के लोग थे और इधर कुछ अलग type के थे. अगर उनको कोई और exposure भी आया है, randomization has taken care that both of them have been equally distributed. Right? Because I have no control. If it has happened, it has happened, and it has happened randomly. And randomly होने के वजह से the bias is reduced. Right? So with randomized control trials, one thing we need to remember: it's an interventional trial. Second very important thing we need to remember: this has the least bias. So if someone is going to ask you, सबसे कम bias किसमें बताओ? Answer is randomized control trial. It is your randomization which has brought the bias to the lowest possible, and because of that, this has the highest level of evidence amongst the trials that you can do. There is more, but these are the trials, so this is the highest level of evidence. So what I would do is something like this. I would take a study population. I am going to decide, let's say I have 1,000 people over here that I have taken. These 1,000 people will be subjected to a randomization process. Now, how to do that randomization? There can be various ways, but let's say, simply speaking, I am using a envelope जिसके अंदर एक code है. वो code patient open करेगा, जिस तरफ का code होगा patient उधर जाएगा, and वो envelopes randomly गिरे हुए. You're just picking up a check blocks and you say, oh, I'm A. Next one pick up some blocks. Oh, I'm also A. Next one picks up blocks. Oh, I'm B. Let's go there. It could be as simple as that. It doesn't need to be a very fancy process. It just needs to be a process where you don't have a control. Right? So you did a randomized control trial, by which means you took 500 people, 1,000 people, you randomized them into two halves. You took them into 500 here and 500 here. Now pay attention to the words. After I've done that, just give me a second, sorry. After I've done that, I want to do an intervention. Because I want to do an intervention, these 500 are the ones who are going to get the intervention. What about these 500? Let's say I am taken up people who I want to test a new drug in. So I've taken people who have coronary artery disease and I want to do an intervention in one arm. What about this? Well, this 500 could either get a placebo. यार बट ये बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा. अगर आप एंटी हाइपरटेंसिव ड्रग देना चाहते हो तो यू कैन डू दिस ना कि मैंने 1,000 हाई ब्लड प्रेशर हाइपरटेंशन वाले पेशेंट्स लिए, 500 लोगों को दवाई दिया, 500 लोगों को दवाई दिया ही नहीं, उनको प्लेसिबो खिलाया, सिर्फ खाली गोली खिलाया, तो लोग बोलेंगे अरे तो ऐसा तो करेगा तो यार पेशेंट्स तो खराब हो जाएंगे. एथिकल कंसर्न है. 500 लोगों का ब्लड प्रेशर बढ़ा हुआ है, उनको ब्लड प्रेशर की दवाई नहीं दोगे तो कैसे चलेगा? People won't allow such a trial, so ethic concern आएगा. So placebo control trial मैं कर सकता था in the past जब दवाइयाँ ही नहीं थी. For example, one of my favorite example is TB. The first time that we got a medicine for TB, we tried it in, it wasn't a randomized trial, but it was a trial in which one arm got bed rest, another arm got a drug. Right? I mean, that was an era where we don't have anything for TB. Now you can't do this. You can't say, I'll give a new drug for TB to one person, other one bed rest karo. I can't do that, right? So placebo controlled trials are reducing. Aajkal you don't get a lot of placebo controlled trials because, well, we have gone ahead in science. So most of you might have got this idea. If you can't do a placebo controlled trial, what you can do is you can say, I've got a new antihypertensive drug. Let me give the new antihypertensive drug here. That is what I call intervention. And let me give the older therapy, the standard therapy here, right? So these people don't get nothing. They get the standard therapy, and these people get a newer therapy. So now I'm comparing the standard therapy with the newer therapy. Most of the trials are going to be like this. Then comes a period where I'm going to follow up these patients for whatever number of time that is pre-decided. And after that, I'm going to study the outcomes. After that, I'm going to study the outcomes. Now here again, something I want you to remember. Now there are some words, I'm not absolutely sure whether these were discussed with you earlier or not. If they have not been, please go back and search them. Beyond the scope of this lecture to go into them, but the outcomes need to be powered. Now what does this mean? What does this mean? Before you start the randomized control trial, you will have to meet the statistician and you will have to ask him कि भाई मैं देखना तो चाहता हूं कि ये नया दवाई versus पुराना दवाई, नया दवाई काम करता है कि नहीं. Statistician पहला सवाल पूछेगा, बेटा ये बता पुरानी दवाई काम करती है कि नहीं. Which of course sir, that works. So he says, if the पुरानी दवाई works and you want to show that the नई दवाई works better, you will have to show a significant improvement between these two. Effect जो है दोनों के बीच में काफी बड़ा डिफरेंस होना चाहिए. और इतना बड़ा डिफरेंस आने के लिए या तो तुमने कोई लैंडमार्क डिस्कवरी की है, बट इफ यू लुक एट मोस्ट ऑफ द ट्रायल्स दे आर नॉट लैंडमार्क डिस्कवरीज. I mean, you might have an older statin and you have a new statin. You have an older sartan and you have a new sartan. So you don't really get landmark discoveries like this. So you might have a new drug in the same category maybe. So you'll say, sir, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि मैंने कोई landmark discovery की है. So the statistician will ask, is every patient who's going to get your new drug will do better than every patient who got the older drug? If you're that confident, then it's okay. Test just two people and show me. But you'll say anything, sir, I don't think that much. But I think overall this will do better. So getting the idea that it's not that always this drug is going to be better than this. But if I believe this is better and I want to prove that, depending on how likely is this going to be true, I need to power the study accordingly. I won't go into the idea of power, but I would want you to know and write this down that power of the study tells you that your result is not happening by chance. You're not deleting the result by chance, but it is actually proving what you're trying to prove, right? And we try to power the study to 80%, right? So please make a note of this, that we power the study to 80%. And once you have powered the study to 80%, that will calculate the sample size. कि कितना sample size test करना पड़ेगा to achieve that power of 80% and still prove a difference between your new drug and the old drug. You want to prove that this is actually different, not by chance, and for that you need to study some number of patients, right? So once you have done that, then you are going to study the outcomes, and in the outcomes, you have to define what is your primary outcome. This is a very important question that a statistician is going to ask you, and this is also what I'm going to ask you when I'm trying to read your paper. What is your primary outcome? Prove क्या करना चाहते हो? तो तुम कह सकते हो, सर मैंने हाइपरटेंशन के पेशेंट्स लिए और मैंने उनको रैंडमाइज कर दिया और मैंने इनको एक पुराना दवाई दिया और एक नया दवाई दिया और पुराना दवाई दिया. प्रूव क्या करना चाहती हो? अब मैं हो सकता है ये प्रूव करना चाहता हूँ कि इनका ब्लड प्रेशर ठीक हो जाता है, सेंसिबल. बट लोग बोलेंगे यार इससे प्रूव करके क्या फायदा, वो ब्लड प्रेशर ठीक होने से पेशेंट बच गया क्या, ये भी तो नहीं पता. सो मे बी आई वांट टू प्रूव नहीं, नया दवाई होने से सिर्फ ब्लड प्रेशर नहीं कम होता, उनका मॉर्टेलिटी भी कम होता है. अच्छी आइडिया है, वो भी प्रूव कर सकते हो. नहीं, मैं ये प्रूव करना चाहता हूं कि नया दवाई यूज करने से इनका मॉर्टेलिटी तो बेटर होता ही है, इनको एमआई नहीं होता है. Fair enough, you want to prove that, try to prove that. The statistician is going to ask you, see, all of these are not same. All of these outcomes are not same. You want to prove that नया दवाई से mortality कम होता है, that's one outcome. You want to prove दवाई देने से तुम्हारा MI कम होता है, that's another outcome. दवाई देने से BP कम होता है, that's another outcome. You decide which of this is what you really want to prove. Now that's the author's choice. The author will decide, the study group will decide what do they really want to prove. But once they decide, based on that, the sample size has been calculated. Based on that, power of the study has been decided. Based on that, the p-value has been calculated. right? So p value, power, sample size, they are all related to one thing, and that one thing is the primary outcome. Really speaking, the entire study is designed to prove or disapprove the primary outcome. But when I do a study, I can always decide and tell my statistician, see sir, I want to prove that MI comes down by using the new drug. But I will be checking that blood pressure, I will be checking that mortality. उस सब का क्या करूं? Statistician will say, बेटा अगर तुझे वो सब चेक करना है ना, तू चेक कर, उसको रिपोर्ट भी कर दे, बट उस सबको सेकेंडरी आउटकम बोलो. वो सब सेकेंडरी आउटकम है. वो सेकेंडरी आउटकम मतलब ये नहीं कि वो गलत है, वो सेकेंडरी आउटकम है का मतलब है मैंने अपना स्टैटिस्टिकल डिजाइन उसको चेक करने के लिए पावर नहीं किया. वो चेक हो सकता है, बट आई कैन बी श्योर ऑफ इट. वहां एक बायस भी हो सकता है, बट आई कैन बी श्योर ऑफ द प्राइमरी आउटकम. उसमें कोई चांस नहीं है, उसमें कोई बायस नहीं है. वो जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ वो सच है. So your statistician has actually told you that your primary outcome is what he has designed the trial for. This is what you are testing the significance for. Significance for, right? You can have other secondary outcomes which can be predefined, or maybe after the study you decide that you want to study some other secondary outcomes. Those are known as post hoc analysis. मतलब ट्रायल होने के बाद आप डिसाइड करते हो मैं ये भी स्टडी करना चाहता था मेरे पॉपुलेशन में. आप वो कर सकते हो, आपके पास डेटा है तो आप स्टडी कर सकते हो. दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट, बट दे आर नॉट कंप्लीटली reliable. These are important outcomes, but they are not completely reliable. They are not completely reliable because this is what your statistician has designed the trial for, right? So I want you to remember that the statistician has designed your trial for its primary outcome, not for its secondary outcome. You might get secondary outcomes, you might report secondary outcomes. Nobody is going to stop you from doing that. But when I read your journal, when I read your article, when I read your article, I am interested in this. You are more likely throughout your career going to read journals rather than write papers. Some of you will write tremendous number of papers, right? Most of you, lesser mortals like me, are going to read a lot of papers. That's important. I mean, anyways, those of you going to publish papers are also going to read papers. You need to know what you're reading. When you're reading an article, you can't read an article, look at its secondary outcome and be, yeah, ये study ने मेरे को prove करके दिखाया था. नहीं, ये study उसके लिए डिजाइन ही नहीं थी. ये study इसके लिए डिजाइन थी, प्राइमरी आउटकम के लिए डिजाइन थी. उस प्राइमरी आउटकम पे ध्यान दो. सेकेंडरी आउटकम को देखो, बोलो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट अपने दिल में याद रखो इसमें एक बायस भी हो सकता है. बायस नहीं, एक्चुअली दिस बाय चांस भी हो सकता है. तो ये बाय चांस रिजल्ट भी हो सकता है. इसको देख के इस स्टडी को एनालाइज मत करो, प्राइमरी आउटकम को देखो और उस पर ध्यान दो, राइट? दैट ब्रिंग्स मी बैक ओवर हियर. नाउ वी हैव डन दिस. वी हैव गॉन फ्रॉम केस रिपोर्ट्स टू केस कंट्रोल कोहॉर्ट टू आरसीटीज. लेट अस से आपने आरसीटी किया और प्रूव कर दिया कि भाई ये जो है ना नया ड्रग यूज करने से एमआई कम हो जाता है. इन हाइपरटेंसिव पेशेंट यूज दिस न्यू एंटी हाइपरटेंसिव लाइक एस इनहिबिटर, एमआई कम हो जाता है. आपने प्रूव किया आपके कॉलेज में बैठ के. अब ना कुछ और लोग आ गए दूसरे कॉलेज से और उन्होंने कहा रे उसने तो ऐसा प्रूव करके दिखाया, हम भी ट्रायल करते हैं. उन्होंने ट्रायल किया, बोला नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है. क्या बोल रहे हो? तुम बोल रहे थे कि होता है. नेक्स्ट पेपर पब्लिश हुआ, बोलता है नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता. एक और कॉलेज ने पब्लिश किया या एक और ग्रुप ने पब्लिश किया, बोला नहीं होता तो है, बट तुम जितना बोल रहे हो ना उतना नहीं होता. ठीक है. अब 3 लोगों ने आरसीटीज किए. देखो आरसीटीज है मतलब अच्छे होंगे, ठीक है, और ढंग से किए. एक ग्रुप को मिला कि बहुत फायदा है, दूसरे ग्रुप को मिला कि फायदा है भी नहीं भी बोल नहीं सकते, शायद नहीं. तीसरे ग्रुप को मिला फायदा तो है बट बहुत नहीं, थोड़ा सा ही फायदा है. ठीक है. तो मैं जो बाहर बैठ के प्रैक्टिस करना चाहता हूं, मैं उस दवाई को यूज करूं या नहीं करूं? शुड आई बिलीव इट का मतलब है, इज दिस एविडेंस, लेवल ऑफ एविडेंस वर्दी ऑफ बीइंग बिलीव्ड और इज इट बायस्ड? अब हमें ये तो मालूम है कि इसका बायस तो बहुत कम है, बट इसके रिजल्ट्स अलग अलग आ रहे हैं. अब यहां क्या किया जा सकता है, यहाँ पे 2-3 ऑप्शंस है. जस्ट समराइज दोस ऑप्शंस कि अब मैं और ट्रायल्स ना करूं. मैं उसकी जगह क्या करूंगा, जितने आरसीटीज हुए हैं और उस टॉपिक पे जितने केस कंट्रोल या कोहॉर्ट स्टडीज हुए, तो मैं इन सारे डेटा को ले सकता हूं, मैं इस सारे डेटा को ले सकता हूं, आरसीटीज जितने भी आरसीटीज इस टॉपिक पे हुए, कोहॉर्ट स्टडीज जितने भी कोहॉर्ट स्टडीज इस टॉपिक पे हुए, केस कंट्रोल स्टडीज जितने भी केस कंट्रोल स्टडीज इस टॉपिक पे हुए, जो मेरा टॉपिक ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है, जो मेरा क्वेश्चन है, मैं उन सारे सवालों को ले सकता हूं. एंड आफ्टर टेकिंग ऑल दोस क्वेश्चंस व्हाट आई कैन डू इज आई कैन synthesize them together. I can collect all this data. So you must have heard Vasumati madam's lecture. In that lecture, she was telling you how to search online. So I can search them using certain specific words. I can collect all these articles. I can read through all these articles, and then I can synthesize. I can combine all of this data and come up with new papers. Now these are papers. These are not trials. Understand? यहाँ तक ना सब कुछ studies थे. ये सब study था. इसमें भी आपने पेशेंट को देखा हुआ है, ठीक है, बट इसके बाद मैं क्या कर रहा हूं, मैं पेशेंट को नहीं देख रहा हूं, मैंने पुराना जितना भी रिसर्च हुआ है वो सारे रिसर्च को इकट्ठा ले लिया है और उस रिसर्च को लेके मैं नया रिसर्च प्रेजेंट करने वाला हूं. उसको कहा जाता है सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू. I can do a systematic review of all of what has been published. That requires me to have enough number of RCTs and cohort studies that have been done in the past by other authors. Maybe I was one of them, but now I'm taking all of them and I'm putting them together to tell you what is the combined result of all of this. That is known as a systematic review. It has a format. I have to follow that format of all these steps have to be matched, and only then I can take that study into my understanding, into what I'm going to read about, and I synthesize all that data and give it together. I combine all that data and give it. To do that, sometimes I might be tempted to use a statistical tool and give out results. So systematic review, to keep it simple, is very often a qualitative answer. Qualitative answer matlab, yes, it looks likely that it is going to work. No, it does not look likely that it is going to work. Some of the studies are favorable, some are not. It's like reading Harrison's. Harrison's is so beautiful because it is almost like a review of multiple trials. That's why it's also confusing, right? But sometimes you are not happy with just qualitative. You might want a quantitative answer also. How much does it reduce the risk? अगर मैं सब 3 ट्रायल्स का डेटा को कंबाइन करूं तो एक्चुअली एमआई की रिस्क कितनी कम हो रही है. ये मत बोलो कि कुछ में बहुत कम हो रही है, कुछ में थोड़ी कम हो रही है. बताओ कि एक्चुअली कितना परसेंटेज कम हो रहा है. उसको कहा जाता है मेटा एनालिसिस. वेरी ऑफन अ पार्ट ऑफ सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू इज मेटा एनालिसिस. Now again, beyond my scope today to go into this systematic review and meta-analysis, this is quantitative very often. This is an oversimplification, I agree, but this is a qualitative summary of what has happened, and this is a quantitative summary of how much percentage, and I can answer a few questions using them. Very often they are done together. They could also be done separately, but this is the highest level of evidence. Today, the highest level of evidence is here. I usually wouldn't talk about their bias because, well, they are not studies. So there's no chance of bias unless, well, I preferred to see some and did not see some. Bias is very often going to be less, right? Now, if you put this as a triangle, very often you will see this as a triangle. You will find that the number of papers that you read are like this. You will see many case reports, many case series, easy to publish, low level of evidence, high level of bias. You will see few systematic reviews, but important systematic reviews. They are the highest level of evidence. They are the least biased perhaps. But remember, these are not studies. These are papers. These are all studies. So if someone is questioning you, what is the best kind of study you can do? Answer is RCT. What is the best kind of trial you can do? Answer it RCT. But what is the best level of evidence? Well, it depends. If you don't have systematic review, then RCT. But if you have a systematic review and you have multiple RCTs, then the best level of evidence is coming from systematic reviews and meta-analysis, right? So with that, I know this was a very fast overview that I have tried to give over here, but I'm going to halt over here and I would like to see your questions, right? And anybody who has a big question and wants to talk, please raise your hand. I would first like to take each question and answer them. There are some parts which I might not be able to answer completely. I would apologize right from beginning. I would request all of you that you shift your questions to all panelists and attendees so that everybody is able to see your questions, right? And I'm going to try taking some of the questions. So Neil and Manali, you'll have to tell me if that's fine with you that I take questions for the next 10 minutes. and then if there are more questions, of course I will take them, but otherwise by 4 o'clock I would like to start the second part of the talk. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So I'll start taking the questions. One question that I have is from Sunil Tamwekar. Thank you for the question, Sunil. The question is, please explain odds ratio again. So I'll try to do that in short. Odds ratio is something I do when I have a case control study. Odds का मतलब है I have done a retrospective study. Odds का मतलब है I have not actually gone from the risk to the cause. Right? This is, or I'm going to keep it simple. So this is the cause. This is the effect. Smoking is the cause. Effect is lung cancer. Here I have not gone from cause to effect. Now, one problem, I don't even know whether they're cause and effect. This could be merely an association, but if I forget that part, I've not gone from cause to effect. I've gone from effect to cause. So I cannot calculate incidence. What I can calculate is the odds. What are the odds of smoking in a patient of lung cancer? How many smokers in case of lung cancer? And what are the odds of smoking in case of non-lung cancer? All right. If I take that, let's call this as odds 1. Let's call this as odds 2. If I divide them, I get the odds ratio. And if the odds ratio is more than 1, I can say that the chances are there are more smokers who have lung cancer, which means smoking mostly causes lung cancer. So ऐसा घुमा के मैंने evidence को समझने की कोशिश की. Right? Again, please read through this through. So I think this has already been covered in the previous talk, is my guess. So please go through that. If not, read it up. It's not that difficult also. So please go through. Okay. Next question is from Manasvi. Getting ethical clearance is tough flag for RCT compared to other study designs. What can be done to bridge this? So not really true. RCT ho ya kuch bhi ho. It's not the RCT which is the tough part to get ethical clearance from. We don't get ethical clearance for interventional trials, right? So they are not against RCTs. They are against the intervention part. Because देखो, अगर किसी को रेडिएशन एक्सपोजर पहले ही हो गया था तो तुमने कुछ नहीं किया ना, तुमने बस उनको स्टडी किया, ठीक है. बट अगर किसी को आप रेडिएशन देने वाले हो, ऐसा हम अलाउ ही नहीं करेंगे. सो एथिकल क्लियरेंस आ ही नहीं सकता. अब अगर आप रेडिएशन में कुछ स्टडी करना चाहते हो, रेडिएशन एक्सपोजर्स में, so you will have to plan your design very nicely. You can't do an RCT saying, I will give radiation and see what happens. Nobody will allow it. You will have to change it and do what I told you. Take a patient group of only people who have got radiation and then randomize them and give an intervention A versus intervention B. That's where your smartness and your education will come in, your background education in that topic will come into. What are those two interventions which will help me not only to study this, but I can also extrapolate more, right? I'll have to design trials. Now nobody will stop you. If you took radiation exposure but try to randomize them against another factor, now nobody's going to stop you. So it's not true to say that randomized controlled trials have a problem in ethical clearance. It is interventional trials which have a problem in ethical clearance. If you plan accordingly, you might be able to circumnavigate that problem. But ethics are an important thing. It's better to not think of circumnavigating against it, around it, but to actually see that your patient is not harmed, right? Okay, Samira, that's the next question. What would be the application of secondary outcome in research and clinical practice? So I am just smiling because this is something I very often discuss with students at Quest Unplugged, and I think that's the beauty about reading articles. Dekho, this study group planned to prove that this particular drug lowers the risk of MI. They proved or disapproved that by looking at the primary outcome. But they did study what happens to mortality. ठीक है? अब mortality wasn't their primary outcome. जब मैं ये ट्रायल पढ़ता हूँ और मुझे रिसर्च में कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं ना, तो मुझे सिर्फ इतना पढ़ना है. बट अगर मुझे रिसर्च में इंटरेस्ट है तो मुझे पता है ना कि इन्होंने ये पूरी तरह से प्रूव नहीं किया हुआ है. तो मैं जब खुद की ट्रायल डिजाइन करूंगा तो मैं इसको अपने ट्रायल का प्राइमरी आउटकम बनाऊंगा. एंड व्हेन आई प्लान अ ट्रायल, I will read my previous data, previous trials for the secondary outcome and take them as my primary outcome. So your secondary outcomes are actually of interest to you. I mean, somebody else's secondary outcomes are of interest to you because they are hypothesis generating. They have generated a hypothesis. They will show you a trend. ऐसा हो सकता है क्या? Maybe it reduces mortality. Now let me prove it. If you see all the RCTs, you'll find कि उन्होंने में लिखा हुआ रहता है कि nobody has actually proven it. But if you see someone has written about it, ऐसा मुझे थोड़ी सपना आएगा कि इससे mortality कम होता है. Someone has thought about it, has tried to do it, but has put it in the secondary outcome. I can take that and make it into my primary outcome. Of course, it's not as simple as it sounds, but yeah, that's how it should work for me. Yeah, I should take it into my primary outcome and try to think in those terms. Okay. So another question by Manaswi is, combining all the previous articles and publish the systematic review, won't it dilute the value of the study as in the reliance on the results of the paper? It could do that if we did not select the studies properly. So for example, if I took a long level of evidence and made so for example, take it again back to here. I told you meta-analysis can take all of these, but you will find a lot of meta-analysis who don't take these, who say that we will not take course control and cohort studies, we will take only RCTs. There are also meta-analysis and systematic reviews which might say, okay, we'll take RCTs which have only more than so much sample size. So you can make the criteria of systematic review, and that's why systematic reviews are not just someone reading papers and writing down. They are actually having criteria which they predefine. So they can make their criteria very strict to see to it that their effects are not being diluted. They want to see to it that the RCTs that they are collecting are also similar to each other. They cannot do a systematic review of all the RCTs were so different from each other that you can't you cannot make one common inference from it, right? So they can be selective in their inclusion for what are they going to study, and accordingly see to it that they don't dilute too much. But that's a very good thought. That is a fear. Where would cross-sectional studies fit into the spectrum? Below the cohort studies. I did not go there, but cross-sectional studies will fit in between these two, right? Somewhere over here. What is the scope for students to do RCTs? So there is a practical answer to it, and there is also what you might say an inspirational answer to it. The inspirational answer, of course, is yes, you can do it, but let's be practical also. You can do it if you have the mentor to do it. If you have in your college a professor who is into doing RCTs, she or he can get you into the trial and you can be a part of an RCT. You will not be, practically speaking, at this stage in a situation to plan an RCT by yourself. It is a lot of thinking. It requires a lot of understanding of the previous work, because to plan an RCT, you should know what has been done before you. You can't just randomly stand up and say, "Mereko lagta hai aisa hota hai." You'll have to see what has been proven in the science. Otherwise, ethics की clearance नहीं देगा. बोलेगा आप ऐसा क्यों सोच रहे हो? Is there any basis for what you have thought? And you say, "नहीं, मेरे को ऐसा लगता है." They'll say, "Okay, go bye, tata bye bye," right? So you need a lot of experience in that field to really come up with the right question and have the right variables that you want to study. As a student, I think you can be a part of an RCT if you have the right kind of mentors in your college, which most of you do have, but you might not be aware that they're doing RCTs. For that, it will help if you go to the clinics and if you know your professors well, you're in contact with them, keep on doing that. And it is possible that you might not do them as students, you might be able to do them as residents. Some of us don't even do them as residents, we do them much later in our life, right? So it's a whole spectrum. So maybe you might not be able to do it right now, you might be able to do it at a later point. There is a parallel question which I would like to place. Students might not be in a position to do RCTs because it requires a lot of knowledge before you plan one. But students should not shy away from reading RCTs, because if you shy away right now thinking that is complex, the chances you will never get out of that fear. And if you couldn't read an RCT, making an RCT or designing an RCT is far, 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 far away, right? So at least start by reading RCTs. How can we find the power of the study? Well, the good part is most of the prominent journals will ensure that the authors are supposed to mention what is the power of that study in the article. So in the methods and statistics section, you will find that they have told you how did they calculate the study sample design, and there they will mention what was the power of the study, and it has to be more than 80%, otherwise the prominent journals will not accept it. It has to be mentioned, otherwise the prominent journals will not accept it. If you find an RCT where they have not mentioned the power of the study, that's a red flag sign. Either the journal is dubious, you have reached a long journal that you're referring to, or the authors are trying to hide something, or it is such a such a basic error that, well, it should still take your attention. I mean, take you off from that journal and say, ये journal अगर ये भी ठीक से नहीं कर सकता तो मैं इसको नहीं पढ़ूंगा, ठीक है? So power has to be mentioned. Can a medical student publish paper at UG level? Of course, yes. There is no doubt in this. I think a lot of your seniors, your batchmates must have published by now. So of course, yes. There is no doubt in that. But the key here is you need mentors. This is not a field where you can work without mentors. This is not a field where you can say कि मेरे को लगता है इसलिए मैंने कर दिया. You need people to guide you. I think my personal grudge sort of is that mentorship programs in India are not very strong. So we don't have that hand holding that should occur. But because of many reasons, most of the professors are very busy with the non-academic, the college work that they have to take care into. But that said, if you approach them, I'm sure they will guide you. So yes, you can publish papers. You can definitely start with the case reports and case controls, case reports and case series. That's the easiest to publish, and then you can climb up. You can always, go and tell your professor, sir, if you have any paper that is pending to be written, I can help in writing. For that, you should know how to write. You should read the other papers first. But you can always approach and tell them, I'm ready to write. They would have some other case report that they will tell you, हाँ ये मेरे को लिखना बाकी था, I didn't get the time. Would you like to write? Go and write that. That's the easiest way to start. Approach your professors, ask them. Ask 10-15 of them, तो एक कोई ना कोई के पास तो रहेगा ही कुछ which they want to hand over to someone who can write, and then go back and report within the next 2 weeks. Sir, I have written this. What do you think? Madam, I have written this. Be behind them. It might take 6 months to get a publication, 1 year to get a publication. Be behind them. That's how we go ahead.